pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right there. Well, thank you all for coming. We'll dig right into it. We do have a Board of Assessors meeting tonight. I'll open the Board of Assessors meeting of the town of Damariscotta, December 6th. Few items on the agenda. Andy, we have an abatement that you've presented to the board. Anybody have any questions on the abatement as presented?
I don't have any
Looks
questions.
pretty straightforward. Looks like there's a building there and there was a building.
I
so-
guess the only thing moving forward that there's a housekeeping part for us is that we probably ought to do a demolition permit. So then we know that these properties have been torn down.
Oh, and say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
Is that something that the town does normally, or we don't have?
no,
a
we
policy?
don't have,
No.
We do not have that,
so,
and it's been brought up
so
before.
then we wouldn't have these problems.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
something to
So,
going
yep,
forward. So,
I'll
okay.
make a motion to approve the abatement request for DIW LLC in the amount of $109.55 because of the demolished building.
I have a second.
Second.
Andrew's going to second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, the abatement has been moved. All right. So there is a list of some personal property tax stuff on it that goes back quite a ways, and he's been dusting off the books back there.
Mm. Mhm.
I think everybody's got a chance to look through. Do you want to bring up discussion on this or what?
Sure, yeah,
There's some old stuff on here and yeah.
there was one account in particular that was brought to our assessor's attention, and look at that, there was about 4 years, I believe, of personal property that hadn't been paid on. It went through it's on its third owner since the last time it was paid. So there's some challenges when the business transfers, it doesn't go through perhaps the same scrutiny or review as real estate does. We don't typically file liens with personal property. The process is just very different for real estate than it is personal property. So I didn't look back in the old minutes, or I didn't find the last time the board took up. I asked Cheryl and she said that it had been a few years, but there was a few years of write-offs basically that had
Yeah.
happened a few years back. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know
went-
what years were included. in
Yeah, I
that.
remember that.
Remember, yeah.
Yeah, we took, because you take some of your overlay to write off
Right.
some of the personal property. We
Yeah.
kind of budgeted a little bit for that because we
Mhm.
knew it was coming.
Okay. So in looking at the one account, I said, well, I wonder how many others are still on the books as past due, and just went back to 2015. I tried to go back a little longer and the program froze. So kept it at 2015, went forward, but I think it's something that we probably just want to just bring it to your attention for now. The one in question we'll deal with the years we can. And then the years previous, I think we can go back about 3 years. The assessors can deal with the current year if there's an issue. Like we're just did. If it goes beyond that period after a year, the select board has to take that up. So we just need to do a little more work on our side to look at what's still on the books to be collected, what's outside of that period. The process to recoup the monies is to basically go through a small claims court process. At this point, one of those oldest ones, some of these businesses aren't still in operation.
So there's a handful that are no longer functioning. Yeah. Changed hands several times.
I think Cheryl remembered there was one time when this was considered and just a large, kind of write off on what was owed was done. And there was the conversation about business licensing or something at that time,
Mhm.
which is also something we've talked about in our goals, and is something I'm bringing up again. I mean, it's not a guarantee you'll get it, but you still would have a process to go through with that if they don't pay to get the license.
Yeah.
But you could make it a contingency of the license to be in good standing with any amount due to the town. So that's something, two parts there. So look into what
Do we send out bills, right?
we do annually.
Yeah.
So with the real estate process, you send the bill. If it's not paid by the certain time frame, you lien the payments that hadn't been paid. It's filed with the registry.
So what would have been the normal sort of follow-up process on a
With the-
personal property?
With a personal property, the one bill typically goes out, and
You just hope they pay?
that's usually it. Because it's again, just a different process.
Different
You
process,
can do
yeah.
the lien, the mechanism to actually follow up and close out that lien process. I mean, and you get a chance to look through that.
It
It's
looked very
pretty
complicated.
complicated. Basically you can go in and take the personal property that had been taxed. You need to know well what it is. There's some exceptions to what you can take if it's like a personal vehicle or some other things that are in there. You can't take those. The timeline to be able to, once you collect it, you've got between 4 and 7 days to sell it. But you need 2 days notice before you do the auction. So you got like a 1 or 2 day window to have the person come in and make the posting. So it's kind of a odd process, much different than, again, the
I
real
should
estate.
know this, but what does the town collect normally in personal property taxes every year? Is it
I was gonna ask that
Is it
too,
a-
if you
is it
can get it to us sometime.
is it 100,000
Yeah.
or is it
Off the
10,000?
top of my head, I don't remember.
I was gonna ask the same thing. At some point, I would be curious to know what
Yeah,
that,
just how
what that amount is. If you
material
can get it,
we're
put it
talking
together,
about.
you email or something. Yeah, I guess.
But
yeah,
I'm
same
just
thing,
looking
yeah.
at this list and, an item like 2015, $51.35. That's, to me, should be written off. It's diminishing returns to try to go after something like that. Probably the people aren't around anymore or the business is not around. But, something as current as 23, even if it's $51, you still pursue it because it's
Mhm.
but something back that far.
I see a lot of these age ones
Just
are,
write it
are
off.
businesses that are no longer.
Well, yeah, what do
town
we do
changes.
about those?
Well, that's right. You
Like,
write it
what do you
off,
do
yeah.
with something like Salt Bay Cafe? They're not in
Yeah.
existence
Yeah,
anymore.
that ends up being a.
Write it all.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. There's just, there's
Because we're
no,
not gonna get it.
there's nobody there, yeah.
No, you spend too much time trying to get.
Right.
It's still not
I
yet.
see it.
I agree.
But yeah, it'd be interesting though, if you can get, when you get a chance, if we could have that number, I'd be curious to see what that amount is, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else
I
on,
guess the last question would be would you recommend changing our policy in terms of how we do it, which is basically send out the bill and hope they pay?
We can look at other, the only thing we can really do is send a reminder notice that you haven't paid.
Yeah.
I think when you look at the manual and the other options you have to lien and take possession of, I don't know that we really need to go there. And I think the business licensing is an opportunity perhaps to, one, for us to keep a better track of who is in business.
Right.
It doesn't need to be, an amount that's cost, prohibitive for a business. But it gets it on the record. It gives us the opportunity to come in, get a perfect list for taxation. And then annual update if you want to do it annually. So it's, again, putting them in front of us gives them the chance to make sure that that's whole if they're going to get the license that year.
Right. And is that something that's very common in other communities?
I don't know if it's very common, but it's certainly utilized. Yeah. I had some examples as a link in the document to look at, and some of them, I think Portland might have been one. I can't remember if Lewiston was one. I think Wiscasset has some form of it, but it wasn't like it spelled out as clean as the other ones. Brunswick might have been another. So there's some of the bigger places. We do have a lot of businesses in town. So I think trying to keep track of that and finding a better way to hold them accountable for what's due.
Right.
with the business license, you and I talked a little bit about business licensing and looking at it too from a different direction. I discussed this a little bit the other day, that there's another benefit. If you look at the licensing side of it, there's a lot of benefits that businesses can have from the town. There's municipal benefits as well, but if you don't know the businesses exist, how do you support them, right? So there's a mutual benefit there where, if there's some sort of licensing, the business exists. If there's grants or things that come through that, like, oh shoot, this might fit, or this might be beneficial to them. So there's another angle of that too for some sort of licensing, but it's been on the books for a long time. That's
And unfortunately, it just never gets to stay at the very top of the
It's somewhere,
priorities, with everything else that keeps popping up, but it has been on the list.
yeah. So cool. All right. Any other questions or comments while we're in the Board of Assessors meeting? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the assessors.
Josh, Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we are adjourned. With that, I will the gavel here and we'll call the Town of Damariscotta Select Board meeting to order for December 6th. We'll get some housekeeping out of the way, and we do have, if it's pleases the board, we have a couple of changes or additions. We have a last minute what? Now the crowd's here, I gotta throw you under the bus back there. Yeah, an entertainment special amusement permit, if it's okay with the board, we'll sneak that into,
For the Legion.
yeah, for the Legion. And we have some, discussion, for, regarding some, I don't know, like property, whatnot, but I'll pull it in. I say after we do the, minutes and the financials, if it's okay, everybody will pull those two changes in, if that's all right. All right, good, okay. Minutes, November 1st and November 15th. Any, questions or additions, any changes to the minutes, anybody?
I have changes to the 15th.
Okay, yeah.
We're done with the first, I don't know.
Any?
I'll make a motion to approve the first.
Okay,
Second.
Andrew seconds, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, for the first, so Tom, go ahead, present
Okay.
your changes with the 15th.
Section 5, section 6. States Tom Anderson wanted to thank the chief of police for painting the walkways. And I just want to make sure that Jason gets the proper credit. Should have read that Tom Anderson wanted to thank the chief of police for patching, sanding the hallways in the lower level of town hall and saving the town money. Yeah, and then under 2II, so Tom Anderson said he preferred the button-up development of budget. It should be bottom-up development of the budget versus top-down.
Gotcha, okay, section 2.
I don't know what the button-up technique is.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve as Tom's amended, or you,
There's a couple other just.
I guess Dan's got
Names
some
are
too.
incorrect. Under the members, under the staff president and other folks, under the budget committee, it should be Ron Heiser, not Keiser. It's
Oh,
Hiser.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
And then Mary Devlin is just MEDLIN, not Devlin.
Okay. Yep,
You're
yep,
right.
gotcha, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then that's also 2 down and she spoke and that's under 2 down in the middle as well
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
And then while I'm at it, just correcting people's names. Under the comprehensive plan, which is town manager's report 4.3. Isabel should be,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
incorrectly spelled
Okay.
as well, so.
all right, yeah.
I'll make
Jason
a
has to do.
motion as amended as the two of Tom and Dan's recommendations.
All right,
Second,
second, Tom seconds, any discussion? Yeah, all right, all those in favor? Okay, with the amendments, yep. I see your hand go up. You, I didn't. Yeah, I did, okay. I don't wanna leave you out,
Maybe not.
wasn't sure. I was looking the other way, so, all right, we'll move on to financial reports, payroll warrant, 23.
Make a motion to approve payroll warrant 23.
Thank you, Josh. Tom, did I hear a second from you? Okay. You sure we second after the motion's made, so I can hear them at the same time? Accounts payable, number 24.
Oh, we get a vote, oh.
Yeah. Oh, just got ahead of myself. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable 24.
Sure, you want me to vote? Yeah.
second,
We have a second on that one. Tom, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Now you can do your.
All right, so with that, yeah, let's move on. We have for our consideration, renewal application for the entertainment special amusement permit for the American Legion Post. Do we have representatives here from the American Legion? Do you have your PowerPoint presentation ready? All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal application for entertainment special amusement permit for the American Legion Post 42.
Probably heard this might be a lot of time.
That's what, yeah, we've been hearing, so we'll, yeah,
Sounds like it'd be a little while.
yeah. So it's all right. This is like good. We've heard some things, so yeah, good space for you. Yeah.
I think it works out the best for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be good.
Good, awesome. Well, I'll second Josh's motion then. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right. We're all set. Yeah, yeah. So Andy, when should do they need to get that tomorrow? or-
Don't forget the late fee.
Yeah.
Throw right in. Throw right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you guys.
So, So the next one on the agenda, we actually have, we've got two special guests here tonight. We've got, Hugh. Can I get you up in the microphone here? Yeah. You sure? Yeah, we'll put you in the hot seat here. I know I hate to make you hobble around, so. And I'd also like to point out that Matt Lucas is in the crowd over here, quiet back there, so. So, how you doing, Hugh? All right. So. You've retired.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Too busy. So, I think the plan was tonight that we had some discussion items we were gonna go over, but you and Andy have talked and actually we brought you here to recognize your time with the town. So we brought you under false pretenses. So, Hugh, correct me if I'm wrong, you started in 2011, right? With the town.
June, yep.
Yeah. And I think, I'll try to throw some stuff together, but I think everybody locally, they've seen Hugh everywhere. I know, you talk to the folks that run the Pumpkin Festival and they've, the help you put in with them and we see you out if there's a limb down somewhere or a stuck culvert or, Hugh's been all over the place. So, the board would like to, we'd like to recognize your time. You've really put some effort into the town and I,
Yes, I did.
want you to know that's appreciated. We do have little signage here for you so that the office staff put up for you. So you've got you now have, it's not a work zone anymore. You have your no work zone. So and I'll bring this over to you. You stay put. And then we do have a little certificate here recognizing your time on the town. And if you look at the watermark, I'm going to bring this over to you. We can pass it around. This is pretty cool. You can hang that up where you need to.
I will.
Yeah. And then the really cool touch is the watermark in behind the.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I don't know where you found how they did that, but
Hold up that other one.
we got the
there.
walker in there.
No, hold up the other
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Also, yeah, we know you've put a lot of time in and we've seen you out everywhere, snowstorms and stuff, and in behalf of the board of the town, we just want to thank you for your time and your dedication. So
Thank you very much.
if anybody else wants to speak, I won't take up all the.
You covered it.
Yeah, I'd like to say, thank you from the Westview Acres Association for coming down multiple times and dealing with issues like ditches that are overflowing or whatever, but you were a common sight and you did a great job and we appreciated it.
Thank you very much.
So did you? Yes, we have. Come on up. Yeah.
On ex facto cemetery committee.
Yeah.
And Hugh has been incredible for the cemetery committee. We've had sunken graves, which you can't leave
Mhm.
for any amount of time. He's there right away.
Yeah.
Tree comes down, he's there to tell us what to do. It was just amazing. Helped so much.
Yeah, no, this is awesome to hear. So we know we're gonna hear a lot of that over the course of time when people, it starts getting, they know you've retired. You always hear this stuff afterwards, and so they're like, "Oh shoot, he did this and that." And we appreciate it. And so yeah. Yes, go. Yeah. Come on up.
And who are you? And where are you
Do
from?
we need can we hear everybody okay with the mic there? I just want to make sure we get in. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sharon Hughes. I got to know Hugh pretty well shortly after we parted ways with the town of Newcastle with the joint public works agreement, and it wasn't working out so well, and we ended up doing away with that at the time, and I was scratching my head, actually sweating bullets, wondering how we're going to keep public works going, and Hugh came along and he said, "I'll work for the town of Damariscotta." So I have always appreciated that, but he was always been there, and he's always one step ahead in taking care of the public works maintenance issues. If you're starting to think, well, maybe we ought to pull the floats out and the harbor. He's already got them out and is blasting them with the water pressure and the hot seat. And then, is Hugh going to be here in the morning to take care of that snow? Come to think of it, come to find out, he's got his bunk out in the in the public works garage. He slept there the whole night, knowing that it was going to start snowing at 2 a.m. So he was
Quite a few of
tremendous
those.
asset to me when I was town manager, and I can't say enough about Hugh. So
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, there, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Come on. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Dick McLean, and we sort of overlapped a little, right, while I was sitting on that side of the table. And it was nice, it was comforting to sit there and know that what was going on outside was in Hugh's hands. And all the things that you said, that yeah, if we had a question, we knew we were going to get a good answer, and his planning for it and everything else was just great. And so just from that side of the table, right back then, thank you very much for making my task easier. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'll say from this side of the table again, that Water Street very much appreciates everything that you've done for us. Anytime we called you, you would be like there trying to fix a ditch or, oh my God, especially that corner on Cross and Water. Good heavens, you spent a lot of time trying to keep us out of the holes.
Keep it together.
But we do appreciate everything you did.
Oh, very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I know I had shared a bit with you when we had lunch last week with Merrill, day before your last day, but just echoing what everyone said. I've only been here a fraction of the time, but I've learned a lot from you. I've been very appreciative of your patience and all the questions I've asked, and whether you realize it, I've been able to take a lot, hopefully not everything, but a lot from you, because you had a lot of knowledge, and the way you committed to the town and
I tried to
made
do
sure
the
things
best
happen was incredible.
time I had. Yep. And to be totally honest with you guys, you need any information, call.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, just call.
That was great. Yeah.
I love this town.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to do.
Yep. We know you do. We recognize that. And thank you. Oh,
I'm not going away. I'm going to try to get into Pumpkin Fest.
yeah. I'm sure they're going to love to hear that. They need help and I know I'll echo. I'm not speaking for them, but this is what we hear coming in is that this is Hugh going to be around? Is Hugh going to be around? And we'll
First,
make
I'd
sure
like
he
to
is.
walk.
You got to get yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah, as I say, you can rest his foot up. Yeah, get yourself healed up and
Yeah, that actually, over the 4 days I was off with just Thanksgiving. Big difference. So if this works, I'm hoping a month at the most.
Yeah, great.
Because I've already shrunk it probably a third from what it was. Yeah. And I had it all the way down to bone, people.
Yeah.
So they wanted to just chop my foot off.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I told them no.
Nope. Find another way. So
Well, good luck.
Your idea?
Yeah. Thought you might appreciate it.
We want to.
I think that might go between the garage door. Thank you all.
Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm not like dressed one.
Yeah, really?
The official one.
Daryl in there too.
Yeah. Turn Simon.
Okay, I'm gonna go off and cry now.
Well, we got. Oh, meeting's just getting going here. We gotta get.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. What's that?
We're spoiled.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you everybody for speaking. I appreciate it. Oh, it was good. Oh. All right. Well, it's hard to go back to business after something like that, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, let me get back into it here. So we have a couple things under citizen comments and general correspondence. Andy, do you want to go over any of that?
Sure.
Yep. Oh.
So I think the day might have been the night of, or at least the morning after, I had gotten from the community aquaculture meeting.
Yeah.
I had gotten an email from Jenny Began, just sharing a link to a 1995 river management study. There were a lot of recommendations in there. She was highlighting some of the same issues or still or coming up again. And so she just wanted to make sure the board had access to that. So I saved it and put that in, whether you know it or not, there's a Google Drive folder for the board. And so I put it in there. If you log into your account, you'll be able to get that.
Where it was. I kept.
But I put it as a
I forgot.
hyperlink in the
Told me that.
digital board packet. So
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
'cause
click on that hyperlink,
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
From, I guess, the device I was on. So.
okay. So if you want access to that, I can print them out if you'd like. It was a little bit longer, but it's worth a read. I think it was kind of a prompt of should it happen? Should it be updated? Should it happen again? It's almost 30 years later.
Who created that?
It was
Back in whatever it was.
It was a partnership with the state, well, primarily the state planning office,
Okay.
but I think there were a couple other agencies, the coastal, well, so it was Damariscotta
The,
River Association at the time was involved. There were a couple of other entities as well. But worth a read just to take a look at what's in there. Again, some of the same challenges, some of the same stuff's coming up in the comp plan for recommendations as well, I believe, still or again.
Mhm.
So just wanted to share that with you. So
Well, yeah, I'll try to get in there on that and navigate the Google Drive.
I kept searching all day looking for that thing.
the and
No.
so we'll probably just as a follow up on the Google piece, trying to utilize that for budget books this year and internally with the staff, just because it's you can get multiple people in the same document. The capital improvement plan that I shared previously on that printed out spreadsheet, I did put a copy of it in there as well. So if Dan had mentioned he'd prefer to see it in the spreadsheet just on the screen because it's easier to follow. So that's there as well. So I can, if anyone wants to see how to access that and has questions on it, just let me know.
Okay, awesome. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed. I just realized that we have folks, I'm not used to anybody coming in on Zoom anymore. So I see we've got Martha Dodge up there and Isabel. So how you guys doing? And I think Isabel's next on the packet anyway. So we're good. We'll turn it over to Isabel here. So. And how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me virtually. I do have a presentation to share by way of teeing this up a little bit. I, as you know, have been working with the Comprehensive Plan Committee for a number of months now on this, and we're kind of at sort of a pivotal phase where we're wrapping up the sort of background inventories and existing conditions. Then we're actually moving into synthesizing all of the information that we've heard from public engagement events so far and actually putting that into goals, policies, and strategies that will end up in a final plan document. So it's sort of a good time for me to just share the progress that we've made thus far and to give you a little bit more information about where we're going from here. So that's really what this is intended to be this evening. In general, what I'm planning to do is just give a brief overview of the planning process thus far. I've cherry-picked some questions that I thought would, or some information that we heard from the public that I thought would be of the most interest to this group. And then I'll talk through the vision and guiding values of the plan that the committee has begun discussion on. And then we'll talk about next steps. And I've also will ask for your feedback if there is anything to give after going through that. So a number of required elements for comprehensive plans are actually spelled out in the state's Growth Management Act. And that's a vision statement, a public participation summary, 13 required topic area inventories, and then goals, policies, and strategies related to those topics. And that includes things like housing, natural resources, marine resources, the economy, recreation, transportation, historic preservation, sort of everything that touches a lot of the work that the town is doing day to day. Then we are asked to put together a capital improvement plan for any new changes or improvements that are suggested as part of the plan. There's also a regional coordination program element that is required. That's especially important in a town like Damariscotta, where a lot of your services are shared with surrounding communities or in more quasi municipal arrangements. And then finally, there's a future land use plan element. And that's especially important because that is the underpinning of any zoning amendments or ordinance amendments that will come forward for the next 10 to 12 years during the lifetime of the plan. In order to essentially get like a favorable ruling in court, if any of those are appealed, they need to actually be directly tied to your comprehensive plan's future land use plan. So that's really important for that reason, but also because it touches on a lot of the strategies that come out of the plan are included in land use ordinance and related amendments. So just to go over what has been going on thus far. So I, as you're aware, came on board in July of 2022. That's when this timeline starts. But I want to add a caveat that the Comprehensive Plan Committee has been working on this for far longer than I have been involved, and doing a lot of discussion and review of existing conditions far before summer of 2022. But essentially from July of 2022 until about December or January, we were working on doing a lot of review of existing plan policy from the plan that was adopted in 2014. We put together a comprehensive plan audit where we looked at all of the policies included there and kind of assessed whether they were still meaningful to the community or whether they had been completed, and kind of earmarked some of them for future policymaking. And then a lot of it was going through the state's data that has been provided to us to actually write the plan. And then starting in about April of 2023, up until just last month, we were doing a lot of community visioning. So we, in January, launched our social pinpoint website, which I linked to in the memo that I sent over to you all for your packet. And that has sort of served as the hub for a lot of the information related to the plan. We had an online survey and an interactive mapping activity hosted there that folks were able to contribute to from about January to August. We had a public kickoff meeting for the project where we sent a mailer to every address in the community, inviting people to attend. That one had about 46 or 47 attendees back in April, where we kind of introduced the project and got some initial feedback. We also held, and by we, I really mean the committee on this one, held a series of tabling events, sort of at all of the community events going on over the summer. They were there with a table. And then we more recently in October and early November had a series of topic exploration meetings, which were focused specifically on diving into some of the details that we heard from our online survey about topics that the community seems to care about the most, or sort of the common themes that have been arising out of all of that previous engagement. And then Michael, the town planner, and I had a fun but exhausting morning with 5th and 6th grade students at Great Salt Bay, where we did lesson and mapping activity with them. And some of those, I think they have fallen down, but they were available in the back of the room for you guys to look at. The students had a lot of great ideas as well that they contributed to maps that are available in the town office. And then now that we're in winter, we're sort of at the plan drafting phase where we're getting into the nitty gritty of actual policy making and creating implementation strategies to realize the community vision that has been communicated to us through all of that engagement. And in January, we'll be having some future land use plan workshops specific to that section of the plan to get some more in-depth feedback on ordinance amendments and zoning map changes that folks might want to see. We are anticipating that this will be available for town meeting adoption in June. That date is subject to change a little bit based on feedback from the committee more recently. But within the summer of 2024, we're hoping that this is available for review and adoption by the town. I kind of hit on a lot of this, but just to dial in on the numbers a little bit, our social pinpoint website, the Project Hub site that I mentioned, ended up having 839 unique IP addresses that accessed it. And we had 278 unique stakeholders. So that was either someone that left a comment on our interactive map, took the survey, or both. We ended up getting 33 map comments and 266 survey responses. Oh, and I didn't mention that we also did a series of business interviews with some of the largest employers in the community. Dan and Andrea were actually pretty integral in that. They both did 3 or 4 interviews each, which was great to get some more specific feedback from our business community. So this is a screenshot of the interactive map, and some of the common themes that came about were around, I think none of this will really come as a surprise. This is probably feedback that you have been hearing, but a lot of the themes were around sidewalks and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, recreation, including some suggestions around specific areas that people wanted to see: a park or a dog park, or various kinds of different parks. A state park was mentioned, a park for younger children, like toddlers and younger, was mentioned. And then there was a variety of comments around general downtown streetscape improvements. Somebody had attached a photo of, I believe they used downtown Hollowell as an example, and that they wanted to see, undergrounding of utilities there and just some general streetscape improvements to make it more inviting. And then we also got a lot of comments around preserving our existing natural areas, but also the desire for more natural area and more water access specifically was mentioned over and over. Going into our online survey a little bit, in general, we asked a lot of sort of broad brush questions around strategy, and the top strategies that folks indicated would most improve quality of life in the next 10 or 15 years, or the lifetime of the plan. We asked them to rank them. The first out of 16 options was to expand housing options for all income and age levels, either for purchase or for rent. The second strategy we heard was improve pedestrian infrastructure, and with the third being fire and protecting more open space and natural resource areas, and then enhancing public transportation in Damariscotta and the region. And then we asked a number of short answer questions where people, typed in their response, and then it created this word cloud. So the word cloud that you're seeing is based on, the word is larger if more people mentioned that. So 28% of our responses mentioned, when asked what they love about Damariscotta, they mentioned the community or friendly people. 15% mentioned downtown, 10% mentioned businesses, more specifically local businesses, and 9% mentioned either nature or water. we asked folks what they thought Damariscotta needs more of. 20% of those answers mentioned housing, 17% mentioned parks, including, again, playgrounds, dog parks, green space. 17% mentioned sidewalks or pedestrian infrastructure. 14% mentioned businesses or more jobs, and 10% mentioned parking. Though on parking specifically, I just want to caveat that a little bit. The results there were pretty inconclusive. Some people mentioned that we need more parking. Some people mentioned that we need to remove parking, especially downtown. So while that word was used a lot, generally the results there weren't super enlightening just because there wasn't consensus on parking specifically. And then we asked what people thought Damariscotta needs less of. Generally, the answers in this category were more disparate, but the largest emerging themes were responses around big box or chain stores, limiting those. And then 9% mentioned less traffic or less traffic congestion. And then I just thought that this pie chart was fairly interesting. So one of the questions that we asked people to select all that apply, how they view Damariscotta. And I thought that this was interesting because the last plan from 2014 really focused on the community as a place to retire. And I think what we can see from this graph, this chart rather, is that while that's definitely still a big piece of the pie, I think people are looking at the community much differently. So 163 people said that they see it as a place to raise a family, as a place to recreate. A lot of people said as a shopping destination or a major economic center for jobs. So, and that was kind of interesting because the data that we have found through our analysis has really, borne that out. We are seeing a rise in people moving here who are younger families or people of what I've been calling like prime child rearing age, where they're moving here to have families. And Great Salt Bay enrollment has actually gone up, sort of especially since COVID to match that information. And then we asked, this is something that has, come up over and over. People are asking us to preserve small town character. So we asked really what that means to them and just to try to drill down a little bit more. And the themes from written responses mentioned the people, community, local businesses, downtown, the character and historic character, and then 4% of people actually use the term vibrancy, which comes into play in a second. And then I know that you all have been talking a lot about housing. So we asked some questions around major housing issues in the community. Of course, 61% of responses mentioned affordability of housing and a lack of affordable housing. But it wasn't just affordable housing. And our interviews with businesses actually underscored this, is that it's also a lack of housing availability. So when I am an employer seeking to hire in the community or bring people here, my lowest wage workers can't find affordable housing to them. But even my highest wage workers are finding a lack of housing availability, rather, meaning that they can't move here kind of regardless of how much money they make. There's just not enough housing on the market for them right now. And then sort of along that same vein, 17% of responses mentioned a lack of diverse housing options. So a large percentage of the community is single family housing. But then we also do have a lot of apartments, especially compared to our surrounding communities. It's sort of that piece in the middle that's missing for folks. We either have large single family homes or smaller apartments, but nothing really in between, which is important for those young families that I mentioned, but also for seniors who are looking to downsize from larger homes. and, allow those larger homes, to be on the market again, and available to folks looking to relocate here. And then just interestingly, again, this kind of underscores the tone of this whole conversation, but you can see from this graph here, clearly there's folks are agreeing that there's not enough apartments or multifamily units. And then that residential single family, there's, probably not enough either, although that one was a little bit more inconclusive. And that is specific to development within the last 5 years. We also asked the same question for commercial. This one is commercial development. This one is a little bit more varying, but in general, people are thinking that there's not enough industrial or manufacturing and not enough restaurants or food and beverage. The restaurants, it's probably about right, but what we heard a lot from people is that they wanted restaurants that were open later or had longer hours, rather than there just not being enough restaurants at all. We also asked a number of questions around the transportation system. I think that this doesn't come as a surprise to folks. We heard that traffic and condition of roadways is lacking, and then that sidewalks, crosswalks, and bicycle facilities are either lacking or severely lacking in the community. And then similarly, public transit options, including like buses or vans, but also railway or regional transportation is also in general lacking or severely lacking. And then I wanted to touch briefly on accessibility for those with disabilities. One thing that we learned from the data is that a lot of the curbs downtown are not compliant with ADA accessibility requirements, especially around curb ramps and the bumpers there. And that was also underscored in our conversation with students at Great Salt Bay, who offered great comments and were very empathetic. And their concern was around accessibility for those with disabilities as well, especially in relation to the downtown area. And then just in terms of existing community facilities, we asked people to identify if they were adequate or lacking. In general, most things are considered to be adequate, as you can see from the gray bars on your screen. But some of the major ones were broadband availability and reliability. We found that that really depended on where people were answering the survey from. We took some location data, and generally people around some of the ponds and in more rural areas have worse broadband connection. And that stormwater and drainage infrastructure is considered to be more lacking, especially in comparison to some of these other categories. This is a slide specifically focusing on our topic exploration meetings. I talked about how we picked out the themes that had been emerging from our other public engagement. So we had a meeting on October 17th around what makes a thriving village. And we talked a lot about just the downtown area in general, including historic preservation and the economy and parking issues and housing and all of that information. Then we had a meeting specific to housing issues and opportunities and heard from folks what they wanted to see in relation to potential changes that could be made to town policy to increase housing production in the community. And then in November, on November 9th, we had a meeting focused specifically on active living, which was more bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and recreation. And those were all generally well attended, between about 29 and 39 folks at each one. And then I mentioned at the top, we are required to put together a vision statement, which is a short aspirational paragraph that articulates what we would like to achieve within the plan. And then we've also decided to organize the plan around 3 major goals or values, which are broad statements that describe the preferred outcome or end state. The draft vision statement that the committee came up with, which is still sort of under consideration as we finalize the plan, was Damariscotta is the cultural and economic hub of Central Lincoln County, focused on providing for our community. We recognize that some level of development is necessary to accomplish our goals, and we are committed to growing in a way that celebrates our defining assets, our historic downtown, our unique natural habitats, and our commitment to being a welcome, healthy, and diverse community. We are moving towards increased sustainability, livability, and vibrancy in all of our decisions. And those 3 words are our guiding values for the plan, which we are focusing on heavily in each of the chapters that we're drafting, and we'll be focusing on when we go to create our policy. So that was sustainability, which we have defined sort of broadly as meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. That's not just environmental, which is usually how we think of it, but it's also economic and social. So making sure that we are budgeting funds and, ensuring that our fiscal capacity is there for the long term. And then livability is usually a range of outcomes that impact the well-being of individuals and communities as a whole. And that usually includes things like housing policy, like walkability and bikeability, and then other environment and health metrics like water quality. And then vibrancy is broadly defined as being full of energy and life. And that's things like creating a sense of place through historic preservation and public art, and also the ability to connect with others. So making sure that our downtown is a welcoming place, that people can walk there, and that they're, seeing their friends on the sidewalks, connecting with each other through all seasons. And then in terms of next steps, just so you're aware, we're currently finalizing the inventories of existing conditions for the 13 required topic areas. We will be moving into goal setting and sort of a prioritization of policy recommendations in January. And we'll also be having multiple future land use workshops in January to try to get as many people to participate as possible. We are hoping to have the plan available, or a draft of the plan at least available in February for the comp plan committee to review and hopefully recommend adoption for. We'll have a public, at least one, probably 2 public open houses so that people can come and comment on the plan. And then in April, the planning board is required to hold a public hearing on the comp plan. And then also in April is sort of, as I understand it, when you all will set the warrant for the June town meeting. So that's the schedule we're attempting to hit. This is sort of subject to change, but we're on track to do that right now. And then before I take feedback, which I'm happy to do, I just wanted to plug again our social pinpoint site, which has really served as the hub for this project. If you didn't get a chance to look at it already, I would definitely suggest that you do. If you scan this QR code with your phone, it will take you there, or it's linked in your packet. And I will take any questions or feedback or comments or anything that you have.
Thank you, Isabel. You just had a little bit of information to disseminate from those surveys. Yeah. Anybody have any questions or comments? I know we have some active members of the
It's not a
committee
question,
here.
But if you, could you email that out, because I couldn't read a lot of the detail?
Yeah, I can email out the presentation.
Okay, great. It's impressive.
Would,
I mean, I think, the town has been working hard and all the people on the committee have done a great job, and this is, it's gonna be interesting how you pull it all together, what your conclusions are going to be.
Yeah, what's that, Andrew? Yeah.
It's a lot of
A
work.
lot of work, yeah. Yeah, I far
Dan
behalf
and
of
I
the
go to
board.
a lot of meetings, so.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Do you, either one of you have anything to add to where you're active with the committee. I know these two speak on it occasionally when it comes up in the meeting. So we get little tidbits here and there, and we appreciate you coming in and giving us a presentation. There's a lot going on with this, and I know there's a lot of people working hard behind the scenes. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate Isabel's presentation here, but in
Mhm.
some ways it just sort of scratches the surface in
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of some of the information that we've been looking at in all the different
Yeah.
areas. And so I think in some ways the most interesting part of the plan is still coming in terms of the work and in terms of recommendations and goals. And I don't want to speak for Isabel, but I think that's going to be the interesting topic conversations over the next couple months. And and so far it's been fascinating, really. I mean, just doing a really deep dive on the town of Damariscotta, going back in time into the present, and just talking to residents, citizens, business people. It's been really eye-opening in terms of just getting a real feel for what the issues are. And I hope we're talking to everybody in town, and everyone is taking the opportunity to talk to us. That's my little concern, is that it's going to be. I don't want it to be a surprise for folks when it comes, because we have been sort of reaching out to as many people and as many different populations as possible in every way possible that we can think of.
That's
over the
a
last
good
2
point,
years.
because I don't know if you read this, but South Bristol is a big reaction to their comprehensive plan. When they put the draft out, they had a very negative reaction to it.
Yeah, well, actually, Bristol is interesting. I'm actually going to they're having their meeting. The town of Bristol is actually having a public forum on tomorrow night, and they're doing it at the their school down there, and it's I'm just curious as to where they're at. I read their plan, and it's and apparently it's got some pushback from individuals, so it'll be interesting to go and just get a feel for they're ahead of us probably by 6 months or a year, and so
interesting to see where they land. Yeah,
where they land.
It's
what sort of pushback you get.
It's always hard. I mean, ideally, you want to get everybody's feedback, and,
You do.
Even though, I mean, we look at what the numbers like 270-ish for responses. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually pretty good for a survey. We see a lot lower numbers on surveys sometimes, so it's actually a very good good number.
Yeah, not to dive too deep into the details before Isabel's on the phone up here. I mean, on the screen up here, but you look at the demographics of the folks that completed their survey, though, and I'm just definitely worried that it doesn't represent the whole town, because it tends to be more women and educated women, if I can put that as a group, because it's like 70% women and more than half have college educations or beyond. So so those are the folks that have really spent time to it takes some time to go through the whole questionnaire. It takes
But I also feel like we have put it in the paper, we have advertised it, so that if people really want to have input, we are giving people multiple opportunities to speak, so that when we do finally come out with it, I would hope that we are representing the population and what they really want.
Well, maybe when you get the draft, you could have a summary of the draft published by Lincoln County News, and ask another time, because the draft is really going to say not what we found, but what we're going to do about it.
Exactly.
That is where you might get more attention.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, we've been submitting a letter to the.
But I'm just saying, when you get to that draft stage, you might want to
it's
more
part
detail.
of the outreach as well.
But we
And the
are
education.
telling them what we're doing. We are keeping it public as much as we can, as much as people want to read.
But it is exciting, though. I mean, there's a lot of interesting ideas out there, and so.
Well, on behalf of the board, just say thank you to everybody that's involved with it. It's a big undertaking, and Isabel, it sounds like you're doing a great job leading everybody through it. So
She is.
She's
doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate the presentation, and we like, it's nice to be kept up to date, and these briefings are nice. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions, Andy? Anything for Isabel? You good?
No, it's been great. I've been able to pop into a couple, not a lot of them, but a couple of them. And it's been interesting just to kind of listen and hear some of the priorities or solutions to some of the challenges that have been raised. it's always going to come down to,
Yeah.
I think there's a feeling that perhaps some of the things never got implemented from the last one. And again, it's just a reminder that staying active afterwards, as focusing on how we implement, how we follow up on those recommendations. Some of it falls to the budget process, and sometimes it just can't get funded. But I think I'm very curious to see what the feedback from the group is about how they want to stay on top of, whether there's an annual or biannual review of progress. It was talked about this year with our goals, and how do we bring that back every so often to make sure we're staying on it, or where are we on that process. So that's my big thing, is kind of how do we take that probably 50 to 60, maybe 100 goals that are going to come out of that and move forward, knowing that we've got the everyday things to do as well. So
Where they play
That'd be
into
great
priority
to-
levels and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, just see when it's done. Yeah. I'll comment to the, I know there's a lot of work behind this, and I volunteered when they put the committee together, and I think I got through one meeting, and once the itinerary started coming, I realized that I would not be able, there's a lot of time involved in it. And I got through, I did one, and then I said, I'm not gonna be able to do, I'm not gonna be effective. So I removed myself from it, because it's like, there's a lot going on there. So
But
thank
this
you,
should
everybody.
work.
Yeah, so
I
it was
mean,
gonna be a struggle to juggle it. I realized that I was just gonna be doing catch up with it, and said I will not be effective. So yeah, so thank you for everybody. So, all right, great. Yeah, there's nothing else for Isabel. We can, yeah. Thank you.
thanks,
Thank you.
Isabel.
Hang out for a few more minutes if you want to. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Martha,
Do you have Martha? I was gonna say,
yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot to put it on the agenda as
Yeah.
an item, so I don't know if Martha's still there.
Martha, you still with us?
Yep, she's there.
I am.
There you are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um,
We didn't, sorry, Andy, go ahead. I was talking over you.
Well, I had shared the burials permitted the rule change. One of the questions before we started from one of the members was, what are the changes? And I didn't have a copy available for them to look at to compare. And wasn't sure if you recalled exactly kind of a summary of the changes here.
I have it on my screen. It was the heading was rules for heirs desiring to utilize space on a family lot in a town-owned cemetery. And that had gotten pretty complicated. And then it did require a $50 fee to redo the deed if there was another generation. And it was just getting, when we looked at it, it was so complicated. And then we started revising and realized it could be a whole lot simpler. So basically, we just made it a lot simpler on who can be buried on a town-owned cemetery. And it just spells out how and why.
So this is the updated one.
Yes, the updated is burials permitted in a town-owned cemetery.
So am I to understand that you have streamlined a bureaucratic process?
We have.
Holy moly.
And we would like this approved and then retroactive to our last cemetery meeting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
We have several heirs who are kind of waiting to know for sure what they need to do.
So
Go ahead, Dan. Got a question?
who arbitrates the burial permit process? Is it the cemetery committee? Is it the town manager, or who is it?
Patty generally takes the lead on that, and if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, and if there's questions or things to work out, she'll be in touch with the trustees. Per the charter, the trustees, as it states, shall have the responsibility for the
Okay.
operation, care, and maintenance. And they do a great job. You guys all took part,
Yeah,
at least part of, or all of the tours. So,
Yeah.
that was pretty evident that they.
And that's
Very
the same
impressive.
group who decides whether who can and can't be
Mhm,
put to rest
right.
Yeah.
in the cemetery.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, in a small town, sometimes people come out of the woodwork.
And I think that because there might be a spot left in the plot, that they should be able to be buried there. And we do have to have some rules.
Squeeze them in,
Yeah.
yeah. So.
Are
Okay.
you looking for a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a
Do
motion.
we, is this,
It was a question I had kind of raised
Yeah.
with, so I wasn't sure like in the past how the policy, I mean, typically if there's a policy of the town, it generally falls on the select board to kind of approve it.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure how it worked. The charter does say they have the responsibility of operation, care and maintenance, but it's still kind of for me, like, I don't know how you've done it in the past. Is that something that the board
forming,
would approve the policy of and then let them implement? I
We
mean,
haven't done much with it.
yeah, I mean,
So,
they've kind of,
But I think it would be good if we just adopt it.
yeah.
Adopt the policy, you know,
It's not gonna hurt, but yeah, like I said, it's been kind of.
But it
Yeah,
would
influences,
clarify
yeah, yeah.
things for everyone if
Might
we
give
just
them a
make
little
it.
more, a little more teeth too, that
Right.
if they,
Exactly.
if they get pushback, say, well, this is a
Yeah.
policy approved by the town.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So I'm fine with that. So,
I think we should.
yeah, I'll, if
Make a
somebody
motion.
wants to make it, Dan wants to make
I'll
a motion. yeah.
Motion that the town of Damariscotta adopt the burials permitted in town-owned cemetery policy.
retroactive to their
To-
last meeting.
Correct.
And I'll second it.
All right, Josh seconds. Any discussion?
just a big thank you for the trustees for all their effort that they
Absolutely.
continue to put
They
in
do
and
so much
Yeah.
work.
a lot
Oh,
of
my
administrative
word.
work that we don't realize.
There's a lot
Yes.
to it. Yeah. And if you
Yeah.
ever get a chance to go out into the field with them sometime, it's fascinating. So, thank you. All those in favor? All right. Thank you, Martha. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Can I just add a quick aside
Yes,
that's not on
absolutely.
the agenda? When I was visiting my oldest daughter in Massachusetts for Thanksgiving, my grandson informed me that on the kids' TV show, Henry Danger, there is a picture of the Damariscotta waterfront, and they describe it as Swellville, a swell view. But it is actually on television.
How about that?
We get royalties for that?
You think, I think it's from the other website, not ours, but it's the view from across the river.
Oh, that's
Thank,
funny.
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Martha.
All right. What else? They do a great job. So I
They do.
trust their judgment and streamlining that. Good to go.
Agree.
All right, we're moving along here. Andy, we have some updates.
Mhm.
Trying to find your notes here again. All right.
I think they're at the end.
They're in here somewhere. There we go. Thank you, Dan. Yeah. Would you like to bring us up to speed with your report? Are you good?
Just ask if there's any questions.
Yep.
I think the only one I definitely was hoping just for some blessing on is the consideration for a half day on December 26th.
Sure.
Day after Christmas, the staff would come in for half day. And that would still open, be a short week already, so, but didn't know if that would be
I think that's-
acceptable.
Head nod,
Yeah.
head nods.
That's good.
It's appropriate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's fine. Any questions on the manager's report? Anybody have anything, comments, questions? Good there? All right. Hearing none, let's we'll move along. So the banking information, we have I think a couple of bankers here, so I want to weigh in on this. Outside my realm of expertise.
So our banking terms renew annually, at least they have at least since Bangor had acquired Damariscotta Bank and Trust. So I think we would be entering our third agreement with them post DB&T. And they'd reached out again, as I said in my memo, they're still very interested in continuing the banking relationship with us. But they are saying that they'd be changing, they wouldn't be able to honor the terms that we've been under, which was a very favorable plus 0.25% over the effective Fed rate, and it reset each month. And so we've been
Losing money every day.
very generous set of terms. And so, with knowing that that's not available going forward in the next contract, just kind of bringing it back to the board to see if that's something with that change that you'd like to just put out there, so it's a more, just competitive or fair for other banks, and propose just could do it as simple as reaching out and asking the same set of questions and parameters for the rate, whether we want a 1 year or multi-year, variable or fixed. Some towns go through the full RFP process. We could do that. It would just kind of push our timeline a little bit and probably into January before we finalized it.
And how much money do we have now?
Currently, there's about 6 million in the checking.
So what does the full banking relationship look like here? It's the operating account, it's this cash account.
So our general fund is all, the general fund and the reserves currently kind of sit in one account. There are some trust funds that are managed by HM Payson.
They wouldn't be part of this.
Not, I don't think so. And so right now what we're talking is just the checking accounts.
Okay.
So there's an account for the school, for our secondary school that we pay out of. That would be in there as well.
So on the working, I mean, separating the 6 million from the working account, how much do you think of the 6 million really is not volatile, just sits there? I mean, when do you, what's your lowest drawdown over the year?
I'd have to look. It stays pretty healthy because the reserve funds are included in that. So with those accruing generally more so than they're being spent. So there's about 2.4, I think, or so in the
One thing you could do though
reserve
is
account.
break it up into CDs and get, you know, if they're amenable to that, which they should be. And just take the less volatile portion with some room, comfort room. And put it in CDs. Even if you cancel the CD, you're gonna make money, and the cancellation fees usually are very low, so. You can get some, you can get the return, even though you probably didn't have you didn't have any CDs, right?
We do not. And at currently at 5.58%.
It's a quick solution. I think they'll all be amenable to that. They want CDs.
So what I'm looking for specifically is guidance on whether you would like us to work something out with the current banker, or whether you want the opportunity to just put it out more broadly to see if we want to change our banking
Put it
provider.
out broadly. Why not?
Yeah,
What do you got to
my
lose?
question is,
We should put it out.
Yeah.
we've been with BB&T or Bangor forever, right?
For a long time.
Me too, for a long time.
I think
yeah.
we were with Camden National for a little bit and then we
Mm.
signed over.
I think we should put it out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it doesn't,
That's a
because the
little-
Why not
opportunities
take
don't,
advantage
because
of
you don't do it that often.
We do not.
no.
And
Yeah.
if it's been a decade or however long, it makes sense. It keeps them sharp too.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
And you don't really know
No.
it's gonna come back.
They changed the
Yeah.
terms. They're not gonna have a problem you doing that. That
Right.
makes sense. That's
Okay.
prudent to do that.
Yeah,
Do you want me to bring those back for the board to decide on at the next meeting? Do you feel comfortable with me trying to negotiate something, putting it out there, getting the rates and doing it? Fine either way. The term that we have currently, I can find out from Bangor. We approve it on the 20th. That I think is fine. We just need to hustle and do it the next day to continue with them or potentially switch. There might be a little bit of a lag with schedules and holidays, but
Yeah, I don't think you'll get it-
not the end of the world either.
Yeah. I don't think you'll get it done that quickly, but I'd like to hear back.
come back to the next meeting, yeah.
That'd be great, Andy, if you can.
Sure,
Gives you a couple weeks, to get it done, no problem.
we can do that. They're usually,
right.
the ones that are most interested usually can turn it around pretty quick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Some have longer
Let's do that.
processes and require a little bit more. But I can
Yep.
certainly reach out.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager act on behalf of the select board to negotiate banking terms for the town. Is that gonna give you what you
Or,
need?
or explore.
Well, the other option would
Yeah.
seek the rates and bring them back to you for the
Exactly.
20th.
Yeah.
I think is what I was
Yeah.
hearing you say you'd rather.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we meant by
Yes.
explore. Explore is a good word for it, but I'll negotiate,
Yeah.
explore, do what you gotta do. Yes.
I sort of was thinking you were talking about a full RFP, but maybe not.
So if the board would like to do that, we could certainly,
Banking relationship then. that way.
right. It just, we all have to come up with kind of an interim, because the agreement ends in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we would need to come up with kind of an interim period while we do the RFP process. It'll just probably put it out another 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought was to continue during the middle of the fiscal year with kind of how we've had it, depending on how the rates come back. Now, if the checking rates come back at less than favorable compared to the CDs, then maybe we do take the time middle of the year to put some of the reserve accounts in a CD. So that part, I mean, that's a little more fluid and you can kind of, you don't need to be all in the same bank to do the CDs either.
Right.
So I was mostly interested in the checking account piece because that's what's coming up at the moment. But if we wanted to do a more full RFP, I said I'll just need a little bit of time to put that together, get it out there. Usually 2 weeks should be enough, maybe 3 for the holidays.
So right now I've got a motion on the table for you to explore options and bring them back to the next meeting. Does that make sense, to everybody, I guess?
It does. I think just before, as discussion before a vote, just so I'm clear
Yeah.
on full RFP versus reaching out to the banks in town and just asking them for the same set of terms and rates on the checking account. Can do either. If we want to do the full picture of what, if we knew exactly how we wanted to break out CDUs and what into what funds, that
Well,
kind of thing, we can
You're not,
explore
I think
that.
your interaction with those banks is gonna tell you what they're willing to do and what they can offer. And so you're gonna be gathering a lot of information. And I think it might be, first step is to bring that information back and see, because you're gonna get different responses from the banks before you spend the time of putting the whole RFP down. But that's just my thought.
What do you think, Dan?
I actually think an RFP makes sense because it's, you're gonna have banks very, very interested in this. $6 million is a big deposit.
Oh, yeah, no question.
It's probably one of the largest in this town. Not, I mean, it is the town, but it's one of the largest that you'll find for local businesses.
Right.
They'll be very, very interested. And they'd be willing to put whatever the time is it's going to take to respond appropriately.
Okay.
And you'll learn a lot, which ones are hungry and which ones are not. So
How about we do both? Because your thing is gonna expire, you said, in a week?
I think we could manage.
but really
that
what
in the
they're
short
telling you
term.
is that they're just changing the rate.
Yeah.
So instead of being,
Yeah.
5.5 currently.
You're right. The effective Fed runs, yesterday was 5.3, but so it's 75. Is it what they're saying?
0.25 over. So what the
Yeah.
is what we would get currently have. So I think I can figure out when go back to Bangor and ask them what that solution looks like in the interim. Let them know that we're looking at doing a full RFP.
Yeah.
Bring it back to the board in January with the responses.
Yeah, because what you're giving up is just the difference between this and what they're proposing, which is what you said, 75% of the effective Fed rounds or whatever it was. I don't know. No, not that.
I can't recall.
Okay.
So the RFP would make sense in this case. You've got time and it's doable.
And this
We'll
is just
make it work.
encouraging us to do it, that's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Saying, we should be doing
So,
this.
do you need me to rescind I'm trying to think, would my motion cover what you need to do? Okay,
To explore.
all right, so there's a motion.
Clear on what that is.
Second.
Tom's gonna second. And just to clarify, okay, so you're gonna.
Work on a full RFP.
Okay, good enough. And all those in favor? Okay, something else to do.
I can do it.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah. You got a couple bankers on the board here too.
Thanks, banker.
All right. Anything else in action? I think we've added all in that we were going to tonight, right?
I believe so.
All right. We can move on to select board discussion items. Andy, you put a discussion item on here for, are you looking for some direction going forward with
The Damariscotta River.
agriculture and?
I didn't know if we wanted to talk at all about,
Yeah.
I mean, what it meant. I watched the meeting
Yeah.
Thanksgiving morning, so woke up really early, worried about sleeping through the turkey time. But
Yeah.
so I listened into that, and so I wasn't sure if you've had a couple weeks now to think about, what you heard, and didn't know if you had ideas on how you wanted to move forward. If you want to think
I'll
about
stay.
it.
Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
Okay, well, we did knock a hornet's nest, okay? The YouTube has been looked at like by 500 people, and then I don't know what LCTV's version of it has been looked at, but it's out there now. It's been in the paper or whatever. And I have a whole bunch of suggestions that lead to suggestions to our legislators to make some changes to give us a little more flexibility as a town to have a say in new leases and licenses, and particularly because the DMR admits and the legislators agree that it's not their role to look out 5, 10, 20 years. They're looking at each lease individually like a rifle shot and not in relationship to the rest of the things that are going on in the river. So when I I said in that meeting that there were two people I spoke to in DMR who said to me that they thought there was a concentration issue on the Damariscotta River, but their hands are tied. They can't do anything about it. So I could make a list of all the things that I think could go into consideration to legislators to look at. But I really think we need a river management committee or something like that. And I think we need to restart what the harbor committee is supposed to do, which is come to us at least 4 times a year, which they haven't been doing according to their own ordinance, and tell us what's up. And I also personally believe that the select board should have a say in every new lease application. I know it's published in the paper. A lot of people don't look at it. It's not a big deal in there. And I don't think anybody here has really been aware over the last couple of years I've been here as to what leases are being approved and what their impact is on the river. And I think it's an important resource. And I think the select committee play a significant role in how the river is changing.
But we would definitely need someone qualified to understand what those leases would do.
Well, to that point too, you know, you're going to be going back to where, like with the DMR stated, and it was interesting. I'll say that it was an interesting meeting. I learned a lot. There's a lot I don't know about what goes on in the river, and it was very nice to hear from everybody. DMR especially, it was interesting to hear what their process goes through. I understand their process because it's very objective. And the trouble I think we're going to run into as a board too is where are the parameters for deciding what goes where. We have to be very specific. There's got to be some subjectivity taken out of it. So backing up a little bit before you would ever even get to that point, that there, I've talked to some folks outside, it stirred up some conversation, but I would say very positive conversation. I've talked to a bunch of people on not, I wouldn't say even on sides, because nobody's on the side. It's the folks I've spoken to, same concerns. They say, they work on the river, they live on the river, they know the river pretty well. They want to be able to, continue, whether it's harvesting or processing or fishing or whatever. And I think they all kind of have the same question on what is the long-term viability. How long can you do a certain thing in a certain place? A lot of those answers are well beyond what we can come up with here. You're looking at some studies maybe, or even I know some of the groups, well, for instance, I'll throw Bill Mook's been doing this for like 40 years down there. Got a lot of data, to kind of, whether it's both ends of that. So there's a lot of information that have to be gathered up. I don't know how you go about and do that. I think what was brought up at the meeting that night was, you might have head nodded to about pushing the state a little bit for some studies or some grant money to do some sort of study. Say, hey, whether it gets whatever parties involved, but it'd be interesting to see.
I don't think you can do anything until you have some really hard data.
Right. Yeah.
There were a lot of opinions. I went to the meeting not really knowing what to expect. Certainly glad I went. I learned a lot.
Same here then. Yeah.
There were parts of it that surprised me in a way. Like, I was expecting folks from Damariscotta to be there. I thought it was a Damariscotta initiated.
There was,
thing. But first half of the meeting was just a bunch of folks from Waldoboro just talking to us, and it felt like they were talking down to us, and and it just didn't, somehow that just didn't sit right with me when I was sitting there listening to it.
Yeah.
And I didn't need the town manager of Waldoboro, it felt fairly like be careful what you're doing over there kind of thing. And then it just kept going. And then honestly, I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, this is the Damariscotta River we're supposed to be talking about. We're not talking about the Madomic. And there's
it's hard to compare.
The premise of the whole thing was that we were looking into why these other towns were thinking about moratoriums.
Right.
Okay. Well, see, that wasn't clear to me going to the meeting. I thought it was.
Well, that's what I said in my opening remarks. But anyway,
Right.
we were looking into why these other towns are doing it. Okay. We got more agriculture than anybody else, and these other guys, little to none, are putting these moratoriums.
Well-
Maybe they know something that we don't know, and
Well,
let's
there's
let's
something
hear it
weird
out.
about the Damariscotta is 80% of all the harvested oysters and commercial oysters in the state of Maine come from the Damariscotta River.
We
We've
know
got
that.
something pretty
Right
special,
now.
but I'm
Doesn't
saying we
mean
got
it'll stay
something
that
pretty
way.
special here as well.
Exactly.
Something really
Right.
special, and
And we don't want them.
You know, the,
Yeah.
what, and to say that takeaway from the comparison, they're two distinctly different rivers, you know,
Yeah.
and which was good. It's good to hear that, you know, they're, you know, well, I was very proud of their river and what they've done there. And that's awesome.
yeah, that's great.
And we, you know, they are too. So the takeaway I got from was, yeah, it was interesting to hear the differences, but we know they're different. You know, we know they're different, and that's
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Well, but South Bristol's on our river.
Yeah,
okay?
but let me
They're-
just say
yeah,
one
sure.
last thing and then.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Yeah.
Because this is just my observation, since somebody asked, I guess. Is that, you know, I was sitting there and there was these guys in front of me and, you know, having, you know, worked in Maine for, 30, 40 years, it was like Drummond Woodson. I know that law firm because I know them well from Portland. And then I was kind of, what are they doing here at this meeting of Damariscotta, Maine? And then sort of the second half of the meeting, it was just like, man, what am I sitting in the middle of here? It's just like, it was just like these two groups that were going at each other.
Yeah.
And that just left me with a really sour taste in my mouth. And it said, oh, is this really just about these two competing interest groups that are using this as an opportunity to do something,
Yeah,
or make a point? And
The issue
that's
is all over the state. The DMR is still doing these meetings, whether it's salmon fishing somewhere or whatever. And it has to do with trying to balance out that all the uses of whatever waterway it is, both the commercial uses and the recreational uses, and coming up with some ideas as to how to go down the road together without having these kinds of conflicts. Okay. And yeah, you got an extreme, I mean, Waldeboro is extremely on one end of the spectrum, and we're extremely at the other end. We have the highest concentration in the state of Maine. Okay. So is there something that tells us maybe we need to change that, or maybe we need to not go down as quickly and add 26 acres of cages on the road, on the river in a certain location, because it's going to affect navigation, it's going to affect sailing, it's going to affect fishing. How far away from the shoreline should cages be, so you can actually, fish along the shoreline or kayak along the shoreline? There's a whole bunch of issues of other uses that come into play that somebody ought to be taking a look at on a river, so we're managing the river as opposed to just letting it happen. Right now, the process is between whoever the applicant is and the DMR, and very little happens with the public in this town in relationship to those leasees. And then we have these other, like, as I mentioned, I think there's like, how many was it? Let me get the number right here. 160, what they call LPAs, that are not even on the map that, that the DMR has. And I'd like to see a map of the current leases right here in the office somewhere, or, so we can all look at it and see, how this river is evolving. And I don't think we should just look the other way and let these leases come in right and left without looking at what the other impacts are. And I don't think people in Augusta and the DMR, and they've admittedly saying they're not looking at 5, 10, 15 years. They're not looking down the road. They're looking at each one of these things as a rifle shot, where it's our river, basically, because we live on it and we use it, and we should have more of an active say in it.
But they were very clear as to what their role is. Their only role is to look at a little piece
Exactly.
and say yes. So it is our responsibility to go forward and do something like find a grant and have our river actually looked at ecologically, so that we know what is the capacity of our river. We don't want to overfish it. There's a lot of things we don't want to do, but we can't do that. We are not.
But I also think in the interim, we need to get more involved in looking at these new leases as they come up. When they put 26 acres down by Dodge Point, there's a lot of people are not happy about that, because it impacts them directly. And So you can go down both paths, looking for the money for a long-term study. It might take 5-10 years, but in the interim, do we want to pave the whole river with,
So-
cages?
Well, go ahead,
No,
Andy, and
go
then
for it.
I'll go.
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, I guess my only observations are that the LPAs, all these the leases, the bigger leases, they have responsible for the cleanup and there's money set aside, from my understanding. The LPAs, they can basically walk away and abandon everything. Who's responsible to clean up the LPA?
And who gives them permission to be there?
If they walk away and they
State.
just leave all the infrastructure there, yeah, it's a small amount, but if you get how many LPAs on the Damariscotta River?
160.
So when you say you get 5 or 6 a year that just turn up and walk away, that's some material that is still there. Also, if you're talking about soft shell clams, Madomic is thriving. What's the temperature of the river there? What's the conservation measures there? We're not doing a seeding conservation project in Damariscotta. Should we be doing a seeding conservation project? Should we work with South Bristol to do a seeding conservation project in Bristol and Edgecombe and Newcastle? And we had data from all these years ago where that stopped. What was the level of aquaculture industry in 2015? I think some of the numbers started changing drastically in 2015. How many commercial clam diggers did we have? Did we have conservation measures for soft shell clams at that point? That's when we did away with it. Look at those numbers. How many clam diggers did we have at that point in time? How many aquaculture licenses were in the river at that time? Did they throw up their hands as the clam diggers and say, they're taking over, we're out of here? Those are the things. What is the temperature of the water?
Those are good points, because that's not what the scientists or the Bill Mooks of the world are looking at all. They're
Right.
looking at the quality of the water and this and that, but they're not looking at all these trends together, which would lead you maybe to some conclusion. You can't just look at it from a scientific standpoint. You got to look at all the other.
But
The Darling Center is looking at it.
Yeah, well, remember,
I mean, the meeting that we had with them, they talked about what they're actually doing.
going to be doing it.
And
yeah.
they are doing seeding of clams. I
Well,
mean,
they're-
they are
Oh, they're
doing
testing.
this.
They're
Much
testing.
smaller
don't do
scale. I mean,
smaller
for
scale. So,
research.
say we partner with South Bristol and they're wanting to do some conservation measures, or they want to try to get a grant for the study area. We've got Newcastle, we've got Damariscotta, we got Bristol,
But
we've got Edgecombe. Why can't we work together? If this is becoming an issue,
Sure.
let's try to put the pressure on the
Agreed.
state, find some
Agreed.
funds,
River
you know,
management. Yeah.
river management grant
and
type thing, and
but the thing is, South Bristol is 12 miles from us. Their ecological, their
Well,
ecosystem
South
is
Bristol, yeah,
totally
but
different
Bristol,
than what we are up here.
well, it's still the same water.
It is still the same water. but the
Water could be
temperature
different.
is different down there than up here.
That's what I'm saying is,
I mean-
how do you know what the water temperatures are in these locations? Do you
Well, I
have a
mean,
comparison
as I
with
said in
the
that meeting,
Madomic
you
to
can grow-
Damariscotta?
you
You
can
don't.
grow oysters in Florida. They do. Okay, so you can grow them anywhere. I mean, they do them in Brunswick, they do them in Harpswell, they do them in Yarmouth, they do them in Casco Bay, they do them in Penobscot Bay, they do them in Canada. I mean, you can grow them anywhere. So there are a lot of differences in the quality and the rate of growth and all that kind of stuff, but you can grow them
So,
basically anywhere.
so how much money does the Shellfish Committee have set aside for any conservation measures that could be available if they choose to do some seeding operations? It's probably gonna take, 5 years as well to do what they need to do, if they do seed for 5 years in a row.
Right. So I think last I knew their balance I think was around 13,000. And at the last Shellfish Committee meeting, I'd kind of challenged, but I said, would you be willing to put an effort, some of that towards looking at an area and trying these methods? Because the Darling Marine Center, some of their scientists or researchers there have been looking at a much smaller scale, smaller footprints, what predators exist, how can you combat, with a focus on green crab. I think perhaps the most important thing. I mean, like Andrew was talking about the ecology of the river from our bridge on Main Street down to South Bristol, even the town line. Forget the mouth of the river. Changes so quickly. I mean, one big rainstorm at the wrong time of year with a nitrogen load could decimate the seed stock that year for clams.
Mhm.
And so it is temperamental, it's challenging, to put exactly how do you measure it, the length of time you need to measure it to get meaningful data to, suggest policy change based on that is probably a minimum of 5 years, I guess. So perhaps starting now with some of that data, continuing on what some has been collected. Coastal Rivers has been collecting data, water quality data for years. Just saw they had announced a multi-organization grant, I think it was 140 grand or something that was coming to them through Maine Community Foundation to support more data gathering in the rivers in the area. So I think for different reasons perhaps, but to take some of what they're capturing. So maybe a recommendation I have is like, can we bring together the entities that are currently collecting data to understand what are you collecting, why are you collecting it, how could it help?
Yeah.
So we can start to figure out if we're going to write a grant, what are we asking to be done? When we ask whoever it's going to be to go out and take data, water samples, what exactly are they measuring?
What are you testing for? Yeah.
I guess one of my points is if the water quality is so good in the Damariscotta in our area, what is the temperature that the clams need to be, or is it in favor of the oysters at this point?
Well, there's something pretty special about the
Right, but the water quality is good.
Right
water
now,
quality.
right now.
Good.
doesn't mean it's gonna
They've been
stay that
harvesting
way.
oysters here
It
for
does not mean it's
thousands
gonna
of
stay
years.
that way.
Right,
So
and
there's a
there's,
reason
and
why.
there's,
That's
right.
true. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's something about this area in this river in oysters.
But everything goes in cycles.
Yep.
Well, 10,000 year cycle.
And we could, maybe it's in another 20 years, we could lose all of our oysters anyway.
we don't talk like that.
I mean, there's the reality is things change.
So I just 2 points. I think that having this data and the science and starting to collect that data seems really important because you got to start somewhere. And the other one, I think to Tom's concern about the leases and might get in this intertidal issue and stuff that was brought up at the meeting. I think talking through the legislature is the way to go there because it's really because at some level, whatever this group is, their issues have to be addressed by the legislature because it's just not something the town of Damariscotta is going to be able to fix. I mean, because these are state rules.
No,
So maybe it's bringing in our legislative delegation, whoever that would be. I guess it would be our state senator and
Cameron Rennie said that you got to go through us.
Right,
I think
so and the state legislator from this district, Lydia,
Yeah.
and just start talking to those two. And
We're fortunate Senator Rennie is the co-chair of the Marine Resource Committee.
Right, right.
That's helpful.
Right.
I mean, she's
it's very helpful.
in her second year now, and I think Representative Crafts, I believe, was also on that committee in her first term.
Yeah.
And so both of them have experience with that.
Yeah, because I think in terms of trying to have a much broader impact, that I think that's how it has to happen is through the legislature.
But I also
And that's
think,
where the lobbying efforts and everything else should be directed, I would think.
I think that's true, Dan, but I think, Andy, your idea about let's get some kind of a committee together with all the interested parties that can contribute to looking at our river ecosystem, that's a seriously important, that would be a good,
And you tie them all together.
I didn't.
and so you're not
You're right.
overlapping.
Your
So
suggestion
you-
was the information that's already out there and being collected.
I
Yeah,
didn't
which
necessarily-
makes sense.
Wasn't necessarily suggesting a committee per se, but
Well, I don't know what to call it,
we
but-
know there are groups out there, and I think the staff could try and bring them in. Whether it's with the Shellfish Committee, whether it's a joint board and
Pre-existing
Shellfish
information
Committee
that's out there.
meeting,
Share.
just to talk about what's out there. What should we be looking at? The concerns of the harvesters for the soft shell clams. Like, what are you seeing? What are your concerns? And to start talking about meaningful data that can be collected to try and figure out, is it temperature? Is it acidity? Is it nitrogen? I mean, what is it that's
Exactly.
causing perhaps, and how do you measure? I think for the legislative pieces, I think it's clear, but making sure that as those ideas come up, there's a timeline obviously that we need to follow. I don't know if we can get anything in this second session. Probably we have to ask to see if there's a way in at this point. So it might potentially be next year.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
need
we
time
tried-
to kind of put it together, and the board certainly needs to be on the same page and what the town is asking to support or put forward.
Well, we need to
Yeah,
get these
what that
parties
is, yeah.
together to get the ideas together before we can ask the legislators to do anything with it, because we don't know what we're gonna ask them. So it's gonna take some
Data.
time. It's gonna
Data.
take some time.
To wrap this up, I would like to add, on a, I'd say it was a negative, but a positive note, it was an interesting, sometimes just the power of getting some people in a room and having conversation. And I don't want to speak for our fire chief, but he brought up a concern with safety. And it was a very positive conversation where the folks involved in the river weren't aware necessarily that it was hard for EMS and emergency services to get to them and whatnot. And that conversation was brought up, and it was very interesting to see the response, like, oh, we didn't know that. What do you need? And I don't know where that is now. I don't know,
I don't know who's following
it's
up
now,
on it,
but it
that's-
was, it was one of those simple things where, like, one party wasn't aware of a concern the other party had. It was brought up, and it seemed like it was very easily,
that was good.
remedied. So, does anybody, we can move on any discussion items? Anybody has anything for this evening, or we want to wrap it up on that one?
I got selectmen discussion. I just have some questions for Andy real quick.
Yeah,
I just
go ahead, Josh.
Keep forgetting to ask. On a snowplow contract, do we have a copy of a bid performance bond yet?
We do not.
So all these things I'm asking are due by September 15th, I
They-
believe.
I believe they were.
Okay. Do we have all the contacts from them, their equipment? We have everything per the contract that was supposed to be given to us middle of September. I'm hearing that we don't have that yet.
I do not remember getting it for
Okay.
this year. I remember last year we did. I don't remember getting that for this year.
And also a contract hinges on price per tonnage of salts. And are we getting a monthly credit? Do we know what price we're getting per ton now? Whether it's we're getting a credit at the end of the month, or we're getting a credit at the end of the year?
I don't know the price that was locked in by the contractor with his supplier this year. Last I talked to him, he was waiting to finalize that. We have gotten the salt shed is now full again for however long it'll be. Goes quick. So I'll have to find out what that price was. We did have that escalation clause and de-escalation clause in the contract last year that was added. So how it worked on the fuel last year, because the salt was what it was the first year, and the
Right.
fuel, I think we locked
$5.90
$5.90. So anything,
below
I think for the most part, the price stayed below that for most
last
of the
year.
winter.
It was closed
Um,
last year. on a
So there
couple
was
times.
money back, and that was usually handled on a monthly basis as a credit back for the fuel last year.
And fuel cost has gone down
At the moment, it's down.
at the moment.
Well, CMP said that they're gonna drop it 25% beginning January 1st because
Elec-
of supplies, electrical,
Right.
because the supplies are there now, they weren't
Hopefully
before.
that stays true to the
Yeah.
fuel.
So is this something you think that we can remedy with our contractor, that maybe we get, if we're gonna worry about language other ways and other contracts, that maybe we follow what's in the current contract?
Yeah, I can let them know. We'll just, if we can get that before the next payment goes out, or what, they'll consider holding it until we get it. I mean, it should be able to turn it around pretty quick.
I mean, it's been done enough years that it should be old hat by now, should be taken care of.
Because they've already put down the first salt of the year already. so-
Mm. Yeah, but this is because we're in December, it's supposed to be
Yeah,
September,
I know,
so.
I get it.
The other day I did talk to Seth, who was plowing our street, Westview, and I ran out in my pajamas because I saw his truck out there. It was early in the morning. But I asked him, if he could lift his plow when he went around, and he said he'll do his best, but he says the problem is if I don't take some of it off, then I get stuck out there. So I said, fine, just do what you can, and so he lowered it, but he didn't go all the way down into the gravel, if you will. So he took a lot of it off.
I noticed the other morning when I drove around there, it might be helpful if folks down there want to consider putting around that corner, because that inside corner is really soft. If you can
Oh,
put
yeah,
some
yeah.
delineators out there that says they're coming around that back corner to find that. I mean, they might get cleared out on certain storms, but That would probably be pretty helpful. It's pretty dark in through there.
All right, well, look
It's a
at that.
soft corner.
Soft and it's.
Well, we
it's easy to
just
pull up
put some
stuff.
gravel down that's got like a powder of cement in it and it's firmed it up. We didn't put enough on the edges though. I think we're gonna do that. So we're gonna still do that.
All right. I didn't go down the line, but anybody else have anything for tonight? Dan, you look like you got something.
Well, I always have a list of things, I make little notes in between the weeks. So you've been warned, so no. No,
You have the floor.
No, I just didn't know, I hadn't heard anything other than the front page of the Lincoln County News, that Piper Mill Nursing Facility. And that was like the biggest construction project in town. It was supposed to be like
Thank you for
$85
mentioning
million.
that. Yes.
And I didn't know what the implications were, or if there were, maybe there were none, but it strikes me that there might be. And sort of, where does it sit at this point?
So maybe do like a exit interview that we never had an entrance. Well, we kind of did, but maybe how come they didn't proceed? You know,
Well,
was it on our end or?
Well, it noted that the
So-
original estimated cost to construct was between 20 and 25 million, and right now it's looking closer to 45.
Mhm.
I think they mentioned interest rates aren't anywhere what they were what they were when they
Right.
started looking at this. So they did allude to some concerns in there. That kind of stalled it for now at the very least. Whether they come back if things change.
I guess
be nice to have.
just to reach out and just touch base and say, you know, we understand you've kind of backed off,
Brought
but
that up. I was,
Yeah,
we
'cause it's
talked about it. Yeah.
It was a big project.
It would be curious to see if there's anything, there's any at the municipal level, is there any concerns there that had a negative effect on,
Yeah.
or why they pulled out. So Josh, it's an exit interview. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
the question you had asked about impact, so I went back and looked. It doesn't appear that I was thinking that I had included the revenue from the building permits in the revenue for this year. I kept it, we ended up approving that at the same rate that it was last year. So we weren't necessarily counting on that to come in. But I did cross my mind when I saw the headline. And we had talked about the possibility of expanding the TIF footprint to incorporate that parcel as well as others. So there was no increase in expenditures and assuming that was going to happen in any time frame, but there was certainly a lot of things that could happen if it's built. And so I know the hospital, once a couple of the staff there had reached out and said it was going to happen, wasn't going to happen anymore at this time. And so I think it's something that I'd suggested they'd offered to meet. And so Michael and I can set up a time to meet with them and the developer to see if we can just understand a little bit more what Josh was asking. And
Yeah, that would be great.
see if we can be good. I think part of, I remember when I interviewed, that was one of the things the board was excited about for the possibility of what that project could bring. It's been talked about for a long time. But for us to board to consider, what role do you want to take in encouraging development, certain types of development in town? And some towns take a much stronger approach and involved approach, and tools like the TIF can help the town be a partner in a project if that property's in a TIF. Just having staff more available to reach out to and try and you got to have something to negotiate or work with to offer to be an attractive site. And so I think working with the sanitary district's another one. A lot of these projects are, if they're off the water and sewer line or need to be extended or a new pump station needs to go in, I think continuing to work with staff over there and hopefully the board be open to being part of that would help as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it'd be nice to follow up on that just to see because we don't know what like I say, that role is, you're not sure what that role is, whether the town needs to help out or not. But if you don't have the conversations and, hearing your concerns, they may come back and say, hey, nothing, it's not you, it's me, but, it'd be interesting to find out because we don't often do that.
Right.
And see why something pulled out or whatnot. So.
But we should probably know
great.
why.
Well, the site plan review process sometimes will stop some from even trying. There's some places that don't have that in place, not suggesting we don't, but they do weigh that, development costs and
Sure.
there's a considerable lift to get all of that stuff through there in time. I think that was a 4 or 5 month process probably to go through that. But in any case, we can reach out.
It'd be nice to hear from them. Yeah.
The other project is still going on, the apartment house for the
Yep, they just had a minor modification.
Yeah, so.
Right,
Change
something
yesterday.
changed,
Yeah.
but
For-
it's still going forward.
Yep, it's a small increase, like 500 square
Square
feet, I think
feet.
was noted, and
Yeah.
there are more handicap accessible units
Mhm.
than what they had originally
Mhm.
proposed, so.
All right. Dan's got a list, so let him get through it.
Oh, no, I don't, it's getting late. Some of these can wait till next time.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever you want.
We don't have another hour, so.
Yeah, so. All right, we're not cutting you off, you get time. All right, I'm not gonna say anything tonight.
Me neither.
I said what I need to say.
All right, so I guess we do have stuff to sign, but we could entertain a motion. I
Make a
suppose.
motion to adjourn.
Josh, Andrea seconds, all those in favor? Okay, we are adjourned.